So, Fidel Beauhill, lovely to meet you at last. And you're known as the modern man.
A lofty title.
So, welcome to the show, Perfect Health on Elastic FM with Elaine Godley. Lovely to see you on the video. Although this is going to be a podcast on the radio show at some stage, as I mentioned.
I mean, they won't get to see my handsome face.
Well, they will actually, because it will also be on YouTube. I don't know when Jess will schedule that, but the interview will be on YouTube as well. We normally release it after it's actually been on the radio show. So let's crack on. Jess describes you. Jess is my PA, Jessica Prime, and she describes you as the god of wellness. Explain, please.
That's what I was going when you came up with that title. Yeah, the modern man is good. I don't know. So I'm a NLP hypnotherapist, master practitioner, and I coach guys. And I take a holistic approach, really, to mental health. I think the way that I've approached it, and the way that our community interest company is approaching it on a bigger scale to come, is that we are in a position of prevention rather than cure. So there are lots of guys out there who talk about mental health from a position of what they've been through themselves and how they've brought themselves back from lots of difficult situations. And there are lots of guys out there who need support like that. And I look at it slightly differently. I look at my position in the industry and in that arena slightly differently, in the fact that I've been close and I've had lots of stressful and difficult times in my life, as many people have, but I've avoided getting that far. And I think a lot of that is down to my health and wellness practices that I have and the habits that I have. And that's what I want to share and encourage guys to do. Everybody to do, really, is to consider mental health not as something you do sort of afterwards or something that needs treating. It's something that needs to be nurtured and maintained, just like your body, really. It's a bit too late to go on a diet after you've had a heart attack. Let's look after ourselves beforehand. And I also think that mental and physical health are intrinsically linked and shouldn't really be talked about separately.
Absolutely. I don't understand why we end up compartmentalizing things. I mean, our whole body is connected. The mind's connected to the body. This business about, get your work-life balance and everything will fit into place. No, you've got your family, your friends, your work, your life, your mind, your body, your values, your beliefs. The whole lot is important. And if any one of those is out of kilter, then it affects the rest of them, doesn't it?
Without a shadow of a doubt.
So how did you come up with the title of Modern Man?
Okay, I will. So I used to be a will writer. I've been a will writer for 12 years. I got quite well known as a will writer and a speaker. I used to go around with a jacket with skull and crossbones on it and a big sign saying "You're all going to die." And I got involved with doing sort of more inspirational talks. And obviously, after taking thousands and thousands of will instructions and talking to people in hospitals and towards the end of their lives, and lots of old elderly people and lots of young people as well, and during a will instruction, I'll speak to people about what's really, really, really important to them in their lives. And I felt I had a pretty good and unique understanding as to what that meant. And I started doing a talk called How to Die Happy. And I came up with my sort of 6 areas of life that people should sort of think about, focus on, and keep as a priority. And I was delivering this talk. One of those elements is the truth. And I was doing a talk in Southampton, and I spoke about this part, and there's 2 aspects to the truth. One is being truthful to people around you. I think one of the things you realise when people get old or towards the end of their life, if they've told lies, a lot of times they want to set the record straight, and lying sort of carries baggage with it. But on this particular occasion, I always talk about being sort of truthful to yourself. But on this occasion, I'd interviewed my mum once on a Facebook Live. My mum's a fascinating, amazing woman. And I asked her if she had one bit of advice to give her granddaughters, what it would be. She said, live your life, find out who you really are, and live your life as soon as you can, because I waited too long. And that's something that really resonated, not just with me, but it really meant something, because it's what so many people say. In the background, I had a slideshow going on. There was a picture of my mum, and I told that story, which I'd never done before. And it was just really emotional for me, I think. It was one of those moments. And I got back on the train and I was like, you know what? You are not doing that.
So you weren't speaking your own truth. You weren't being authentic at the time.
No, I mean, I got into will writing as a business. I was the whole Bad News Beauhill character, and the Skull and Crossbones was an expression of myself within the industry. But more and more, as I started doing speaking, people were contacting me and looking to me for more sort of guidance and ideas and more sort of spiritual, I don't know, sort of things like that. And I felt a bit of a fraud with that, because I've had my fair experience of death, but mainly it's been professional. And it certainly hasn't really affected who I am. So at the time I was having hypnotherapy as well, which had opened up my unconscious mind. And so I spent 3 days going, oh, who am I? The question I actually asked myself was, what do I have to offer? And I spent 3 days with flip charts in my office doing a bit of a crazy professor thing. And that's what I came up with, the modern man. I was brought up by my mum, who was a feminist, but had 4 sons, and so sort of taught us truthfully how to genuinely and ultimately respect women and what they've been through and who they are, but also not to depreciate our own masculinity, you know, and sort of own our masculinity and what that meant for us. So a good balance, really. And I look around me now and I look at the state of men's mental health and the suicide rates and things like that. And I think it's something that's really gone wrong for my generation. I don't think we have a lot of balance between what is modern masculinity and how we communicate that with women. I think that is kind of broken. So I feel like I'm in a pretty decent position to be able to help with that.
When you say your generation, I have no idea. I'm hopeless at guessing ages. And they say you shouldn't ask a woman's age. I don't know where that nonsense came from. I mean, we are who we are. I'm 62, so let's get that out of the way. How old are you, Fidel?
I'm 42.
Okay. So when you say your generation, what do you mean by your generation? You've got these different pressures and things. What kind of pressures are you seeing and feeling yourself?
Pressure is an interesting word. I think I would just describe it as a bit of a change in dynamic. So sort of the gender roles have changed, haven't they? Sort of. So my parents' generation, I mean, you're somewhere in the middle, probably closer to my generation than my mum's. But so my mum's generation, they kind of were at the forefront of the fight for gender equality, okay? And during our generation, that has gone like this, okay? It's got closer and closer to equality. We're not quite there yet, but it's closer than it's ever been before. And it's meant a huge shift. And I think whilst women have been, the focus of this movement has been about women, quite rightly so, I think they've also been really sensible and been having conversations amongst themselves about what it means. When the workplace in this country was a masculine environment, they discussed what it was like to be a woman going into a masculine environment and asserting themselves and everything else like that. Personally, I think a lot of workplaces now, and certainly the work that we do in this country, is quite feminine in its energy. It's sort of lots of communication, lots of sort of requirements of more softer skills rather than more sort of the traditional masculine physical stuff. And I think the problem is that men haven't been talking about it amongst ourselves. It kind of happened, and we've turned around, and the gender roles have kind of, we're expected, we've still been fed a narrative of being manly and being a cowboy and being a hero and going out and being the breadwinner and being the bread earner. But our reality is we now have to, don't have to, but we're now expected to come home and help with the kids and do the hoovering, and being part of that, being a modern man, right? Which is fine. And most men are happy with it. Unfortunately, we've got these other things going on in our unconscious, which kind of, by doing these tasks, is making a lot of guys feel unconsciously emasculated. And that has caused a problem. And I think men don't really know where we fit into all this. And because we don't have the vocabulary, we don't have men-only spaces anymore where we can go and discuss these things. I think it's just caused a bottleneck and a bit of a crisis. Well, I think the statistics speak for themselves, really, that we have got a crisis of masculinity in this country. And we don't quite know where to go with it and how to talk about it.
So you were doing will writing for many years. Bad News Beauhill with a skull and crossbones. You had a word with yourself, and then you came up with a modern man concept, which makes perfect sense.
Yes.
We'll talk a bit more about the Modern Man Club and the programme in a little while, but I understand you're also a boxer, and I think you're still keen on boxing. Tell us a bit about that part of your life. Yeah,
so again, it's something that resonates with a lot of guys. It's about 7 or 8 years ago. I sat on the edge of my bed and felt a bit miserable and felt something sitting on my lap, which turned out to be my belly. And somewhere along the lines, I'd gone from a very fit, capable, athletic man to about 120 kilos with over 30% body fat, without even noticing until that moment. And I decided to do something about it. And the way I did that, the short story is boxing. So yeah, I took part in something called white collar boxing, which is a bit of an unfair title. I think I've had a fight with a deputy headmaster, but I think I've had more fights with bricklayers, people from the army, window fitters and things like that. So yeah, I don't know why it's called white collar boxing, but it's basically unlicensed boxing. Yeah, and I love it. I think it's something that's, it really helped me actually rediscover my masculinity, for sure.
So is that something that you still train? I mean, presumably you can't just pitch up and have a fight. You need to do some sort of training, specialised training, I guess, for that.
Yeah, very specific training. So my last fight was about 18 months ago. Since then, I've been sort of taking my level 3 personal training qualifications at the moment. So I've been messing around in the gym and doing things like with weights and stuff that I've never really done before. But I want to fight again in the new year, so I'm back doing very boxing specific training, which is different. And I think you can't, if you want to be fit and healthy, I don't think there's anything better than sort of combat sports training. I think is the ultimate for that.
Yeah, and any weight bearing exercise has got to be good the older you get, because keeping our bones healthy, even if it's just walking. Not many people will be prepared to throw themselves around a boxing ring, but go for a walk or a run or whatever is good. So back to the Modern Man programme then. So I see from your website that you actually have a programme. So how does that work?
Yep. So we have a program. It's actually back to my How to Die Happy talk. Really, I just think there are sort of 3 main elements that are really, really important for men to feel in control of in their lives. I use the word control in the right way, in a positive way. So one is their health. So first of all, we show guys and we help them install healthier habits, drinking more water, taking daily exercise, looking after their mind, and things like that. So that's the first stage. The second part is their wealth and finances. I think it's a huge problem for men. I think a large amount of the suicide that we're getting at the moment is to do with financial difficulties, a lot of debt, and people just working themselves to the bone to try and pay it off, and just feeling completely out of control and not knowing how to manage their finances. Speaking from personal experience, I ended up in hospital after having a panic attack, having some problems in my business 3 years ago, and just not speaking to anybody about it because I was worried as to how people would view me as a man because of it. So getting control of your finances, even at a bottom line, just understanding about how to save money, and again, it's about habits, installing those. And then finally, once we've sort of got control of our health and installed those habits, got a feeling of control over our finances, we then take that rolled up confidence and bring it into our relationships, whether it's friendships, family, partners, children, as fathers. And we look at that. So that is the Modern Man program. I've got several others, but that's the signature one.
Okay, so that's health, wealth, and what was the third thing? Health, wealth, and relationships. Yeah. Okay, cool. Okay, so you're based in Bristol. Do you still travel the country to give talks and deliver programs, or are you mainly kind of home based now?
Yeah, no. So I travel the country doing talks for sure. When I do 2-day sort of breakthrough sessions with some of my clients, and I do sort of timeline therapy, which needs to be face to face. But a lot of my coaching clients I see over Skype. But yeah, I get around. I enjoy it. I'm a rolling stone.
So what would be your top advice then to somebody who has never heard of the Modern Man program, somebody who's maybe in their sort of 35 to 45 year age bracket, which seems to be the time when women and men kind of find themselves during that sort of 10-year window, I found. And I can speak from personal experience on that as well. So what would you say, to people who are finding themselves lost and without direction? What should they do?
Take a bit of time out. I just tend to find that we spend most of our lives in sort of our conscious mind, don't we? Literally getting through day to day, paying the bills, getting to work, picking the kids up, doing the washing, eating, doing shopping. And then what happens in this period between 35 and 45, it used to be called a midlife crisis, didn't it? Is that I believe our unconscious mind starts knocking louder and louder and louder. One of the prime directives of our unconscious mind is it knows what makes us happy. It knows who we really are. And we've spent 35, 45 years repressing that and not listening to it and not paying attention to it, which can lead to things like running away, divorcing, buying a red sports car and finding a Pamela Anderson lookalike, because those are the posters we had on our wall as a teenager. Our unconscious mind thinks that that's what will make us happy. So rather than having a reaction to that, maybe just be proactive about it. Sit down, understand what your values are, as you alluded to earlier on. Values are critical. What is really important to me? What motivates me? Who am I, and what's most important to me? Create a vision for the future. Where do I want to be in 10 years' time? Is that aligned with my values? Is that where I'm heading now if I carry on doing what I'm doing? And once you know what is important to you and you know where you're going, you can then actually start setting proper goals. I think lots of people set goals in their lives that take them off in all sorts of different directions and aren't aligned with their values and aren't taking them to where it is that they really want to be. And which is why there's a lot of failure of goals, and where people have started hating New Year's resolutions and stuff like that, and just view it as something that everybody sets up and then fails at. And I personally think it's because they're not in tune with their values or their vision. Yeah,
as you say, I think it's something that when we're not taught at school, are we? I certainly wasn't taught, and I don't think they're still taught at school today about values and beliefs and visions and goals and all the rest of it. It's told to be optimistic and look forward, but not kind of given the tools on how to do it.
Correct.
So that's all very interesting. So people can sign up online, presumably, for your program, can they?
The best place to find me is, so again, I do work with some women, but primarily I work with men. I run a men-only Facebook community called the Modern Man Club. So you can find that on Facebook. That's a really great place. We've got over 600 members in there now, and it's one of the most, weirdly enough, the most pleasant places on Facebook that I've encountered. We have very, very few arguments, but we have some really, really great debates, and it's a place where guys have felt really comfortable enough to open up about some of the stuff that they're going through, and they can realise that they're not alone, and that a lot of other guys are going through the same sort of thing, and can offer some really good sort of practical and emotional advice. We talk about what kind of pants we prefer to wear as well. So we do have a bit of a laugh, and we talk about cars and things like that, but we talk about some sort of deep stuff. Today's conversation was about what's a primary driver when you're having sex. Is it your own satisfaction, or is it your partner's? So that's created quite a good debate going on in there today, just to give you an example. Yeah, that's the best place. Come and hang out with me and the guys in there. Then you can find out a bit more about me and the programs, and whether you want to work with me, and whether we're a good fit. My website is modernman.org.uk, and we are about to we're in the process of setting up a community interest company called the Modern Man Club, which will go and work with personal trainers and gym owners on a program which is sort of 45 minutes, whatever exercise it is they teach, and 45 minutes of discussion. And we'll roll out an agenda for them every Sunday that they can follow, and just creating positive men-only spaces that are making men better for the whole of society.
Brilliant. I love the idea of that. And is that going to roll out throughout the whole of the UK, and then perhaps in time the world?
Perhaps in time, no, absolutely in time. It's going to be going to America, Australia, Canada. That's absolutely the plan over the next couple of years. So yeah, we're in the process of, we've kind of planned it. We've got the plan. We are about to step into execution phase with that. So yeah, over the next few months, we'll be doing a lot of promoting and looking for our first lot of gym owners and personal trainers to join us in that mission.
Brilliant. I love the idea of that. I will have to connect with you separately and find out about a bit more and see how I can support you with that. That sounds fantastic. So best of luck with all of that, Fidel. Lovely to have a chat with you. Before we go, I always ask guests to come up with a couple of songs, and you've chosen a couple of my favourites. Bob Marley, No Woman, No Cry. So why did you choose that one?
It's powerful, isn't it?
It is. I love it.
And the thing is, it doesn't really make any sense. It can mean all sorts of things. I've had it. I'm half Jamaican and half Brazilian. I'm like, my dad still loves Bob Marley, as well as lots of other reggae music, but Bob's like a real feature of my childhood, and the music that my dad listened to, and that's just one. It just means so much to me, and especially now what we're doing, and I think it sums up how I have always felt as a man. My kind of primary concern and thing is to make sure that women don't have anything to cry about. I think it's really important for men to have that as an underlying principle. So yeah, it's an important song to me, and a very beautiful song, and that always makes me feel happy. Yeah,
excellent. Your mum's done a great job. Send her my regards, and give her a pat on the back for bringing you up. And if your three brothers are anything like you, she must be extremely proud.
Yeah, not as good looking.
The other song you've chosen is Billie Jean by Michael Jackson.
Yes.
Explain.
Yeah. So again, a real song from my childhood, man. And Michael Jackson moonwalked, a moment I will never forget. Musical history. Michael was my absolute hero. The Thriller album was just, and still is, an absolute masterpiece from a musical point of view. But that message in that story, I didn't really understand until I got into my sort of late teens, early 20s. And I've had it in my life a few times, most of which didn't turn out to be true. One of them did, which was, the thing of women getting pregnant by you, or you making me pregnant, however you want to look at it. It's a problem for men, and I think now there's all sorts of stuff. It's one of the biggest male-specific problems we have in this country, is how that dynamic is played out in the family courts, and how so men and women get together, they have sex, woman gets pregnant, the choice is completely away from the man as to whether that child is born or not, rightly or wrongly. Or, I don't think men have a choice over a woman's body, but they don't have a choice as to whether or not they then are responsible for that child, and quite often it can cost them everything. It can cost them they can go through emotional turmoil if they want to be a part of the child's life, but women don't let them, and all sorts of stuff like that. So the family court is something that is badly set up, and it's taking a huge toll on men at the moment. And I think the words of Billie Jean and the sort of the story that he tells in that, of just lots of women writing him letters and telling him that he was the father of their child, and to him and all his brothers, and actually he ended up with quite he used to have nightmares. This one woman, Billie Jean, used to write him these letters, and she described them, and she wrote them in such a way that they kind of emotionally scarred him. And I just think it's a problem that gets ignored and minimised, but it's a real male-specific problem, the whole area. So I think Billie Jean deserves a bit of a comeback, and I think it's a bit of a theme song for this particular struggle that we've got as men in this country. So yeah, that's why I picked that one.
Good for you. And I think we're going to be having some conversations offline about all this stuff. Fascinating. So thank you so much for your time this afternoon, Fidel, and best of luck with all of your plans.
Thank you, Elaine. Lovely to speak to you.